So President Biden and Donald Trump have both officially clinched their party's nominations, if you will, for the upcoming November 2024 election. Biden crossed the line with a win in Georgia's Democratic Party yesterday. Trump won the Republican delegates he needed in Washington state. What this means is the long-expected 2020 election rematch is officially here. Recent polling shows Trump leading Biden in many key battleground states, which I don't think very many people are surprised at that. But what's interesting to me is independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will announce his running mate soon. He has Jesse Ventura as an option and NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers as another one. Now, I don't know how y'all feel about celebrities, because think about it. Trump was a celebrity more than anything else. He was not a politician. He was a celebrity from TV and, real estate and everything else. Celebrity who became president. There was jokes about, well, Oprah should run for president. The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson should run for president. And now you have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying, let me jump on this bandwagon, this train, if you will, of bringing in celebrity names to get the popular vote because they like them. So he's got Jesse Ventura, who is in politics technically. And then you have Aaron Rodgers, who is the quarterback for if I remember correctly, I don't know where he is now. I don't think he's Green Bay anymore. He was Green Bay for like the longest time, but I don't think he's a cheesehead anymore. I don't know where he is at this point. It doesn't really matter. But I think it's interesting that out of everybody under the sun that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. could pluck to be his VP running mate, if you will, he's got Aaron Rodgers as one of the options. I mean, Jason Kelce just retired. Could you get him? Maybe. People like Jason Kelce. Don't go for Travis. He's busy with, Taylor Swift. But Jason Kelce could be open for it. You just never know. People love him. You might have a better chance there, Mr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Okay, so let's move past that. I wanted to mention that because it's important. People have been thinking, well, there's a possibility that, Biden won't be the primary nominee for the Democratic Party. Of course he was going to be. And I don't know who thought that Trump wouldn't be the primary nominee for the Republican Party, because of course he's going to be. So we literally have deja vu of 2020 all over again with this election. And what are the odds it goes the same way it did in 2020? But what are the odds that people change their minds this year and it goes a different route? I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. And by interesting, I mean, I think we all need to really pay attention to what our country has gone through for the last 4 years, and really pay attention to what could happen in the upcoming 4 years before you go and cast your vote, if you will. But speaking of casting votes, let's talk about the elephant in the country. It's not the elephant in the room, it's the elephant in the country. All of the illegal immigrants that have crossed our southern border and our northern border. There are people coming in through Canada too. Don't get it twisted. It's not just the southern border. That just happens to be where the influx is. And the airports, obviously, because with Biden willingly flying in 30,000 immigrants a month from the 4 countries we mentioned yesterday, and I could not remember number 4. Now, they're coming from numerous countries, but there are 4 specific countries that the Biden administration is knowingly, willingly, purposefully flying immigrants in from, and that is Nicaragua, which is the one I could not remember yesterday, Cuba, Haiti, and Venezuela. Those are the 4 countries that they are being flown in to the USA from, 30,000 a month, totaling 327,000 a year, around those lines, right? So there's that, plus everybody coming into the southern border. And people are going, what does this mean for voting? Is the Biden administration, is the Democratic administration letting all of these illegal immigrants in hopes of having an extra ticket or an extra ballot or an extra whatever that's voted democratically for the Democrats, and that way they win by a landslide because of all these illegal aliens or illegal immigrants, it used to be called illegal aliens, that they have let in. And I was very, very curious about how this actually works, because legally, federally legally, which I don't think that's really the right way to phrase that, but federally, if you are an illegal immigrant, you do not have federal voting power, which is what the presidential election is. It is a federal election. It's not a city council thing. It's not your state. It's not any of that kind of stuff. It is a federal election. Therefore, it is different. And illegal immigrants do not legally have the right to vote in those. Okay. But it doesn't mean that their voices won't be heard, but in the sense of their bodies won't be counted. That's what it really comes down to. I am going to backtrack for just a second here. We talked about the measles outbreak in Chicago yesterday. There's been a measles outbreak in Florida as well. It's been talked about a lot, and people are saying, well, it's just the measles. It's not a big deal. But I do want to point out that it may not be a big deal for you or your family, especially if you do have the measles vaccine, and it may not be a big deal because you have strong immune systems. But I would like to point out that measles deaths, according to all the statistics that I could find, increased 43% in the last couple of years, from 95,000 to 136,200 deaths from measles in the USA alone, okay, which I think is a big deal. And I just wanted to bring that to people's attention. So for people out there who are worried about what is happening in these sanctuary cities, because that seems to be where most of it is, minus the Florida one, where the measles are being brought in by people who are crossing the border, whether it's flown in or crossing, walking, swimming, whatevering. The diseases, everything else is being brought in. It is a big deal, and it is something that needs to be paid attention to. Maybe don't dwell on it on a daily basis, but keep an ear out or an eye out for it and understand who's in your community and what you should be on the lookout for and be wary of. Okay, so that's that. Now, what I wanted to talk about is the fact that I will never fully 100% understand how our voting system works. When you're in school, whether it's middle school or high school, I can't remember which one where you learn about it. I think middle school is where it starts. They start talking about the way that your vote counts, your vote matters. And of course, when you get to my age, you realize that at the end of the day, the long run, the scheme of things, does it really matter? Because technically the electoral college is what matters, not you and me. But we're supposed to have some sort of say in it, and what we do should have a sway on the electoral college. And then it's a very confusing thing. All right. Now there's going to be plenty of y'all out there who are miles above smarter than I am when it comes to stuff like this. This will always be slightly confusing to me. It's hard for me to really wrap my head around some of it sometimes because it feels archaic. It feels outdated, and it feels like something that should be changed, especially when you really take into consideration what an electoral vote means. So I have my handy dandy notes right here to kind of help myself understand and then kind of explain to you guys that it's not the votes of the illegal immigrants we need to worry about. It's the electoral votes that matter. And it's the bodies of these people that are crossing the border that are going to end up having the sway, if you will, when it comes to the votes in the long run. And the fact that these bodies are going to sanctuary cities, and these sanctuary cities are blue cities, it will give a bigger sway to blue electoral votes, which in theory is what the Biden administration is hoping for. They're hoping for that swing in their favor that they can't get from you and I, because there's been some things that have transpired in the last 4 years that we're not fans of, that we don't like, that we want to see changed, and we're not seeing that change with the administration that we have. So I was always curious what determined the amount of electoral votes a state has. And I thought, the bigger the state, the more votes. Kind of, sort of how it works. So for those of you who may not be fully aware, just like I have not been fully aware, electoral votes are allocated among the states based on the census. And that's where it comes into play. Every state is allocated a number of votes equal to the number of senators and representatives in its U.S. congressional delegation, 2 votes for its senators in the U.S. Senate, plus a number of equal votes to the number of its congressional districts. And as far as I know, the bigger your population becomes, the more people you need to run those populations, which sounds really crappy when you say it that way, but you end up with an extra seat here or an extra whatever there, and that's how those electoral votes start to add up, right? If I'm doing this wrong, y'all tell me. I've got all the notes here trying to make sure I don't give you incorrect information. So there are a couple links I will put into the end of this video for you guys to read about, because it explains it a little bit better than I can. But there are a few things. It says, which state has the largest population and therefore has the most electoral votes? Well, we all know the answer is going to be California, right? There are 538 electoral votes, and these are split between the 50 states. California has 55 electoral votes since it is the state with the largest population. And again, population is what is going to determine everything at the end of the day. Not your vote, not my vote, but the population itself. And if you can bring in a whole population that's going to go into the areas where you need them to be, because then it gives more votes for that blue state versus that red state, you guys can understand why the Biden administration is not really chomping at the bit to shut down the illegal immigration through the southern border, right? While they're allowing it, while they're flying more people in, while they're giving away money to keep people here, because they need those bodies in those areas to help swing the vote their way. According to this, in contrast, Alaska and 6 other states with low population numbers, as well as Washington, D.C., only have 3 electoral votes. So you have a small state that is red, and it's going to get 3 votes. You have a large state, California, that's blue, and you constantly feed them more people so that their population is bigger and bigger and bigger. They should get more electoral votes, and then those votes will outweigh your 3 in the red state like significantly. And at the end of the day, all you need is 270 electoral votes to be crowned president. We're going to go with crowned president just because it's ironic, because it's not even a real thing, but crowned president, right? Technically, you could have a 269 to 269 tie, but the odds of that ever happening, almost like a 0.001% chance. So 270 votes is all you need to become the president, which is why it's so hard to see a switch or a massive change in Democrat versus Republican holding the seat, because then it means you need those big states to completely change their mind, to go, I'm tired of being blue, I want to be red today. Or the little states to go, oh, well, I don't want to be red, I want to be blue today. You have to have those changes throughout the state, technically throughout the different parts of the state, to get those votes to bump up so that the electoral votes are the color that correspond with the president that's going to win. It is the most confusing thing in the history of things, in my personal opinion. So I pulled up this one article. It's on fairvote.org, population versus electoral votes, because it does make a big difference. And there's a lot of information here, but there's this one part I wanted to read to you. Okay. So this says, voters are represented in presidential elections, technically. A way of measuring a voter's clout in a presidential election is simply whether or not they live in a swing state. Those voters that live in spectator states essentially have no clout, as candidates know that the outcomes in those states are already decided. There is very little incentive to campaign in those states or respond to the needs of those voters, which that's the problem. Very little incentive to campaign in those states or respond to the needs of the voters. And when I read that, I immediately thought of Biden and his inability to go to East Palestine, Ohio for the full year after anything happened there, because it's not a state that matters to him, and therefore that state didn't matter, and the response or the needs of the voters there didn't matter. So why would he waste his time going to East Palestine, Ohio? I think it's very telling when your government tells you that if your state isn't big enough, or you don't have enough clout or enough pull to determine whether they do well or not, then you don't matter. You are just a blip in the radar of what they're trying to do, and your needs don't matter. Awful, in my personal opinion. It says National Popular Vote provides analysis of the spectator status for most voters by highlighting the fact that most of the 2016 presidential campaign took place in just 4 states. Let's see. There was more I wanted to share here, but I don't remember. I lost that spot. But the fact that the 2016 presidential campaign, 4 states is really all that mattered. Everything else was considered non-necessary. They were considered no clout or unnecessary. It's kind of a big deal, in my opinion, when they tell us that our voices matter, your vote matters, what you do matters. And at the end they go, well, not really. It only matters in certain states. The rest of y'all, you're just here. It's like a participation trophy. We want you to feel like you've done something. We want you to feel glad that you're part of the game. But really, you're like the B-roll in a video. You're like the background symphony in a song. You're not anything special. That's not stuff you want to hear. Now, I was curious about the laws that allow non-citizens to vote. So this is on ballotpedia.org. In 1996, the U.S. Congress passed a law prohibiting non-citizens from voting in federal elections, like I said, including elections for the U.S. House, the U.S. Senate, and presidential elections, the top three that really matter, right? This does not apply to elections at the state and local levels. That's where the big issues will start to come in. No state constitutions explicitly allowed non-citizens to vote in state or local elections. However, as of June 2023, 7 states specified that non-citizens may not vote in state and local elections. Those 7 states would be Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Louisiana, North Dakota, and Ohio. Those states will not allow non-citizens to vote in any way, shape, or form. The District of Columbia and municipalities in 3 states allowed non-citizens to vote in local elections as of June 2023. And that would be, and I'm sure you've already guessed it, California, Maryland, and Vermont. Okay. Now, according to the Pew Research Center, there were over 25 million non-citizens living in the U.S. as of 2020. This was 4 years ago. That includes approximately 12 million permanent residents and 2 million temporary residents who were in the country with legal permission, as well as approximately 11 million immigrants who resided in the country without legal permission. Whether non-citizens should be allowed to vote is a subject of debate. Obviously, a lot of people say, well, if you're not a citizen, why should you have a say in what's going on? You're not part of the same system. You're not paying the same taxes. You're getting different kinds of, honestly, preferential treatment. Lately, it seems if you're an illegal immigrant, you get preferential treatment over the citizens of the United States, right? With, here's some money, here's a phone, here's a free place to live, here's some free food. We don't even do that for our veterans, for our homeless, for our displaced families, for our men and women that have been in domestic violence and have to leave the homes, all these different things. But if you've crossed that border illegally, by golly, we're going to give you everything we've got to make your life easier. So the fact that there are states that do allow non-citizens to vote at state and local levels says a lot to me right there, because they know that they need those votes in order to swing the way they want to swing. And we're not talking swingers. I don't want anybody to get confused here, but you know what I mean. They need those non-citizen votes to push the things that they want to push, because a lot of times those things help the non-citizens more than they help the citizens of that city or that state. We all know that's true. That's fact. I mean, you can look at California and know that that's true. So we talked about this last year, y'all, when this happened. We talked about it last year, but I do want to remind people of what California passed into law and how there will be many more states following their lead, because in 2023, California law allows non-U.S. citizens to become police officers. We just spoke yesterday about how there are so many different cities and so many different states that are saying they are low on police officers. They are low on law enforcement. Louisiana had a state of emergency due to the fact that they had no police officers for a certain amount of time. You have, was it Louisiana? Yes, and then you have Philly, who is not going to accept calls from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. because they don't have enough police to run the phones and, go help people and stop burglaries and stop murders and stop all these other things from 3 to 7. It's like the purge, is allowed at that point, because who's there to stop them, right? Well, California said that non-U.S. citizens can become police officers, and they did pass that into law. San Diego being the area officially. It says here, we talked about before, San Diego Police Department lost over 500 officers since July of 2020. That's drastic. They said they need everyone that can be able to be a police officer to do it. However, we are not in favor of reducing the requirements and lowering the standards. So what they've done instead was made it so that you had to be a United States citizen or a permanent resident to qualify for the job prior to January 1st, 2023. That's no longer the case now. Anyone, and this is the kicker though, anyone who is legally authorized to work in the state of California under federal laws with a proper green card or visa is eligible to become a police officer. So a lot of people are worried about the fact that illegal immigrants are coming over and they're allowed to be police officers and such, which is true. There are, in theory, these loopholes, not the right word. These whatevers they have to do. They have to either be have a visa or a proper green card. And you can get work visas. It would involve following some of the correct routes, if you will, as opposed to just, illegally being here. You do have to follow some legal routes in order to get a work visa or a green card. But let's talk about the brother of the man who killed Laken Riley on the UGA campus last month. That man had a fake green card. What's to stop a police department or a Walmart or a Kroger or a Kohl's department store or McDonald's from accepting a fake green card? What if that manager doesn't know that's a fake green card? Or what if they are so hard up for help, they say, listen, screw it. As long as you can show me something and I can be like, oh, I didn't know it wasn't real, we'll give you the job. How do we know that that's not going to be what happens? It used to be when I was younger, it was go get a fake ID so you could get into a bar. Go get a fake ID so you could buy a pack of cigarettes. Go get a fake ID so you could get into an R-rated movie. Now it's go get a fake green card so you can be a police officer. Yeah, so there's that. I think it's very interesting that that is the case, because not only has California said that, hey, listen, you don't have to be a legal citizen to be a police officer. You also don't have to be a citizen to serve on their committees. So San Francisco appoints first non-citizen to serve on elections commission. We talked about this earlier as well, but just as a reminder, the newest member of the San Francisco Elections Commission, which is a 7-member civilian body that oversees and creates policy for the city's Department of Elections, isn't legally allowed to vote, yet they're on the board. How does that work? Why is this a thing? This is the same thing as you weren't born with a vagina, but we're going to call you a woman. That's not how this works, my dudes. It is there's so many people blurring lines and crossing lines and just finding loopholes throughout whatever, and just blatantly ignoring lines and loopholes. And our country has turned into this weird Ringling Brothers kind of circus thing, all because you have certain states out there who want to be super tolerant, might not be the right word, inclusive, diverse, whatever, not because they believe in it, or most of the time, or because whatever, but because it helps them push whatever agenda they want, helps them get the votes that they want, helps them pull in money from the government for these cases, these causes, these whatevers. And all it does is make this entire country look like a confusing patchwork of crap. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, right? Kelly Wong, an immigrant rights advocate, is believed to be the first non-citizen appointed to the commission. At a swearing-in ceremony administered by Board of Supervisors President Aaron Peskin and at San Francisco City Hall, dozens of people gathered to commemorate the occasion. Wong said she hopes her appointment is a beacon of hope for other immigrants living in the city. How about if you want to be a beacon of hope, you show other immigrants in the city how to do things the correct way, how to become a legal citizen, so that then you aren't breaking the laws. All you're showing is them is that you don't have to follow the rules or the laws in order to get what you want. You can just skirt around it or whatever else. How does that help anything? I mean, California, people used to say California was going to fall off into the ocean because of all of the mudslides, the landslides, the hurricanes, the whatever's going on with it. But it's going to fall off into the ocean because at some point people are going to start trying to saw it off, because whatever's happening in California, it doesn't make sense. They're doing everything wrong over there. California could be a great state. There are some gorgeous places in California, and I'm sure there's some amazing people in California. Unfortunately, they're not the ones who are making the laws and letting all these things slide through, and it's absolutely crazy to me. According to Kelly Wong, though, or whatever her name is, Kelly Wong, it doesn't matter if you're legal or not. As long as you wish hard enough, you can make anything happen, which is crazy to me. I have another thing here. What is this? I had another little link here I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I don't remember. Oh, no. So this is from inthistogetheramerica.org, and it talks about the Electoral College's rule in U.S. elections. I'll put a link to this because it's kind of hard to understand, and my brain was like, it's too much today. We're not doing this today. All I know is it's going to be very hard to swing right when everything right now is being aimed at swinging farther left. And that's the easiest way I know how to put that. You have states that are doing everything they can to bring in more bodies to help it stay blue or swing it blue or whatever you want to call it. And I think this election is going to be probably one of the most controversial ones we've had in a very long time. 2020 election in itself was controversial with did he win or didn't he win? You know what I'm saying? And I think 2024, because the popular vote doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if more people vote for one than the other, when at the end of the day, the electoral votes are what decide the presidency, which makes it seem, again, like our voices do not matter. And when you have everybody being brought in to help swing those electoral votes or up those electoral votes in a certain direction, how is this going to go in November? It's a very interesting situation. So there's that. Squirrel Tribe. I love y'all. I just wanted to bring this to your attention today, talk about this today, because it was something that was on my mind. A lot of people have talked about the voting and the whatnot. So hopefully this answered a couple questions, gave me more questions, honestly. So I'm going to put the links in the description for you guys, or the pinned comment, so you can read up on electoral votes and stuff if you're a little like I am with it. Maybe understand it a little bit better. And I will see you guys on the next one. Love y'all. Bye.